Welcome, everybody. This is Denny Carter from NBC Sports Edge, powered by ROTOWORLD. We are kicking off more than 12 hours, amazing, of drafting by NBC hosts, by analysts, by all sorts of personalities, including my two guests here for the ROTOWORLD Draft Day special. We're going to kick it off with a Superflex here in a moment. We're going to tweet out the link to this draft if you would like to join us, if you're watching on YouTube, and I hope you are. But first, I wanted to introduce my two co-hosts for today. We have Zach Krueger, my buddy from Maryland, of course, and a fellow Roto-Worlder. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Denny. I'm surprised to see you in a suit here after you threw that interception at the Fantasy Football Expo. I was not expecting a promotion from you, but it looks like you've been promoted with that suit over there. So looking good, and congrats on the on rising through the ranks.
Thank you. I've been wearing the suit since the interception just to compensate, because I'm feeling a little bit insecure after all that, and then of course we had a blurb about my interception at the expo, so I'm rattled, I'm reeling. But I will recover. My other co-host today is Kate Magdziuk. Thank you, Kate, for joining us. You can find her at FF Ballblast on Twitter. She is the associate manager and editorial operations at DraftKings Nation, and works at Ballblast FB. Now, Kate, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I said just before we hopped on the live stream here that I'm feeling a little underdressed. So now I feel like I'm going to have to overcompensate after I hop off this live stream because I feel
Right.
not suitable for
I gotcha.
this kind of event.
If you wanted to wear a ball gown, you could have done that. It's okay. It would have been fine. I told Zach, I thought we had an agreement with Zach where he was going to wear his tuxedo. He said he had to save that for a wedding coming up. So yeah, what can you do?
I forgot my good tiara today. Shame on me.
Me too, actually. Well, yeah. Thanks again, guys, for joining. And we're gonna each draft our own team in the Superflex, and hopefully be able to kind of break down and analyze, why we're drafting certain players, why we're taking certain strategies, I guess, depending on where players fall. This is a Superflex again, which means that you can start up to two quarterbacks, for those who might be unfamiliar with the strategy. Before I get into, how we approach Superflex, I wanted to tell the folks watching here on YouTube about our draft guide. NBC Sports Edge Fantasy Football Draft Guide is now available online. Prep for your draft with the latest player rankings, projections, and more. We've got you covered with all league formats and draft strategies. Plus, and importantly, it's powered by ROTOWORLD, the premier source for player news and fantasy information. And for a limited time, use the code DRAFT1, DRAFT, the number 1, to get access for just $1. You can't afford not to do it economically, honestly. So check that out, the draft guide. We have lots of stuff. I have several articles in there. I know Zach contributed. So we are going to get on our way soon. Before we do, Kate, when you go into a Superflex, what are some of the strategies that you like to employ?
Now, I am normally a huge proponent of the late round quarterback, especially this year. I feel like there's just so many potential QB1s and so much value at the quarterback position. But in a Superflex, you can't afford to skip out here. So if I'm at the top of the draft, which sneak peek towards our mock here, yeah. I am. I'm going to grab one of those elite quarterbacks, but my favorite strategy as of late has been to pair my first round quarterback with, like a sneaky follow-up. I don't know, like a Kirk Cousins, who's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in fantasy football right now. So I do in a Superflex, I try to go top heavy here at the position, which should be no surprise, but I mean, honestly, with the way that this shift and this shifts the draft strategy across the board for all players,
Mhm.
it forces a lot of value down at running backs, wide
Okay.
receivers. So you compensate for that.
Absolutely. And Kate, you talked about late round quarterback. Are there any quarterbacks that jump out at you where you feel like you can maybe cheat a little if somebody doesn't want to go, two quarterbacks right off the bat, which is a viable strategy, obviously, in this format. But is there anyone that jumps out at you as like a particularly great upside pick at quarterback later on?
Of course, you've got to talk about Trey Lance. We're all still talking about Trey Lance from his performance this weekend, quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So much rushing upside. And again, this all kind of depends on your scoring format as well. If you're in a league that values passing touchdowns just as heavily as rushing touchdowns, then you do have to consider a Derek Carr, a Kirk Cousins as one of those late round values. Maybe even a Mac Jones, who we've heard positive things coming out of camp in terms of his second year projection and his movement forward. But I mean, just across the board, regardless of scoring format, Kirk Cousins is my top value, being drafted right around quarterback 15 on average. And I don't think there's any way that Kirk Cousins falls out of the top 12 in the 2022 season.
It would seem shocking. And Zach, if you're approaching this where maybe you want to get one elite quarterback and then wait a little bit, can you name one or two guys that you're looking at?
I've got two, and Kate touched on one of them. The first one was Mac Jones, so I listed some interesting numbers from Mac Jones last season. The Patriots were 28th in pace of play. They were actually dead last in pass rate at 49%, yet somehow Mac Jones managed to be top 15 in attempts, completions, completion percent, passing yards, and passing touchdowns. She touched on the fact that Mac Jones appears to be making a little bit of a step in training camp, step forward in training camp this offseason. It seems like the worst part about that is they seem to have no offensive coordinator on staff. But I do like the idea of Mac Jones perhaps seeing a little bit of positive regression from these 28th in pace of play in 2021 and last in pass rate this season, if he in fact does make this leap, where some of these top 15 numbers maybe creep up a little bit higher. Maybe the Patriots are closer to top 20 in each of those two categories, and he becomes a viable fantasy option. The other one, which I hate to say, is Carson Wentz of the Washington Commanders. I wrote the 2022 Washington Commanders fantasy preview over at NBC Sports Edge, a great website. I may be biased. But some of the numbers that I put in that article mentioned that the Commanders under Scott Turner and Ron Rivera, obviously the head coach Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator, have been 6th in neutral pace of play since 2020 and 8th in neutral pass rate at 57% over that span as well. Now, I use that number in my article to prop up the wide receivers, Curtis Samuel, who actually hasn't played that much this training camp, but also Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. And while I wouldn't necessarily use those numbers to prop up Carson Wentz in a one quarterback league, I think some of those numbers are kind of encouraging in a Superflex league where we're going to want to be starting two quarterbacks more often than not. If Wentz is kind of seeing that volume, that high pace of play, I think the Commanders are going to want to throw it more with having gone out and acquired Carson Wentz from the Colts. So I think even Wentz could actually be a sneaky player, despite the fact that I don't necessarily love him as a player. But here we are. I was not running a bit when I texted you last night and asked you if I could talk about Carson Wentz in a positive light. Here we go. It could happen.
I thought you were messing with me, and you take no pleasure touting Carson Wentz. I understand.
I don't.
As someone who also touts bad players all the time, I get it. So just real quickly for me, two quarterbacks that I look toward a little bit later in Superflex. I mean, these aren't like late round flyers or anything. But Matt Ryan in an Indianapolis offense that I think will be probably more pass heavy than we've seen. Frank Reich said over the weekend, we don't want to be a ground and pound team. I think that was a pretty big signal. I think the fantasy managers need to listen to something like that and adjust for both Matt Ryan and Michael Pittman for one. Possibly for Jonathan Taylor, but maybe not so much. And then Jameis Winston, who last year had the worst receiver room in the league, or generously bottom 3, and this year it vastly improved. Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, if he's indeed healthy, who knows? 2 years recovering from an ankle injury, so it's vastly improved. I think that you could put his receiver room now in the top, I don't know, conservatively top 12 ish there, and And we know Jameis Winston has been very fun and very good for fantasy in his years in Tampa. Hopefully we get a little bit of crazy Jameis launching it downfield, gunslinging a little bit this year. So I do like him as sort of an arbitrage on the early round quarterbacks. We're going to kick off the draft in just a moment. Anything else you all want to add about, how to approach a Superflex? I will say, I think the number one error among more casual drafters, I think, is freaking out about quarterback and just saying, oh my God, I need to spend 3 of my first 6 picks at quarterback. And I don't, it can be okay. It can work out, but I think that keeping your head about quarterback is an important key here. Anything else from you, Kate?
I just want to say I absolutely agree. Don't pivot too hard, because you are going to see in your draft quarterbacks will fly off the board early, and don't overreach. So if there's not a guy that you're loving for that value there, don't be afraid to wait. And also, I just want to back up the Carson Wentz pick, because I think he definitely enters this season as one of the most underrated quarterbacks for fantasy. The narratives surrounding his play as an actual NFL quarterback and what he's shown on the field, totally different story. But even in a disastrous 2021 season, had 8 games where he finished with 21 or more fantasy points, which is bonkers when you think about it. So, I mean, shows you that the floor is relatively safe. There is some upside. So I definitely like that Carson Wentz pick, and I just had to throw that in there because he's not getting enough love in fantasy in general. And fantasy is not always pretty, but we want to score points.
No, it's not. Right. The goal is to score. This is what people forget. Honestly, we fall in love with players, but it's about maximizing points. And if you have to draft Carson Wentz and dry heave a little, that's okay. I think that's okay. Zach, anything else from you on Superflex?
No, I think you guys really did a good job of touching on it. You mentioned not panicking with the whole quarterback thing, and you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks fly off. I think that just means if you're in the second round, if you're picking out of the 206 or something, and Davis Mills is there and you're panicking, you don't have to take Davis Mills. Go to a player who's actually good. Take that player and keep it moving. You'll get another quarterback later on. There's no reason to do any kind of panic moves just to fill a position.
All right. Well, we have started the draft now. The 101 is on the clock. We're going to pull up a screen here so folks on YouTube can follow along with the draft. It looks like Kate has the 2nd pick. I have the 10th pick. Where are you, Zach?
I am sitting at the 106.
You're at the 106. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of wanted to be able to watch how things unfold coming from both sides, and hopefully not do something crazy like draft Davis Mills in the middle of the 2nd round.
Yes. I don't know if that's entirely necessary, unless you're playing in an all Texans league. That would be the
it's acceptable then.
The exception. So yeah, I mean, Josh Allen off the top is pretty standard. Kate goes with Mahomes. Kate, can you tell me a little bit about why? And this is just like splitting hairs, I know, with like Mahomes, Herbert, and the other elite guys. Why did you go Mahomes?
For me, this just comes down to safety. I know, obviously, Patrick Mahomes has lost Tyreek Hill this offseason, but he's still got Travis Kelce. Yes, I know Travis Kelce is 33 years old, but the splits on and off the field with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, we lose some efficiency there from Patrick Mahomes when we've got him off the field, averaging just 1.5 yards per attempt fewer. And I think what we make up for some of that loss in efficiency, we're still going to have the volume. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster's is a very different player from Tyreek Hill, but not as significant a downgrade than we would have believed based on narrative here.
Sure.
Just so safe, has scored at least 20 fantasy points in 51 of 63 career starts. Wow. Insane. Incredible.
I know it is. I think that he will be okay without Tyreek. Although I do believe Tyreek is probably still the most dangerous weapon in the NFL, and I'm not sure how you lose him. I'm not sure how you let him go. But the Chiefs are are a smart organization. So who am I? Who am I to question? Zach, who did you go with in the first round here? You went with.
I went ahead and went with quarterback Joe Burrow, Cincinnati
Burrow.
Bengals. Obviously, the first 5 players off the board were also quarterback. I don't think this is a panic move, though. I still feel good about it. One of the reasons I've been drafting a lot of Burrow along with Jamar Chase when I can, and also T. Higgins, is some of the encouraging pass rate numbers that we saw out of the Bengals towards the back half of last season and really throughout the playoffs. They really increased their pass rate in a significant way. I think you wrote about that, Denny, recently in an article over on the site as well. Weeks 14 through 21, obviously including the playoffs, they increased their pass rate to 63% from 55% in the previous weeks, which I think is really encouraging for any team, much less a team that's quarterbacked by Joe Burrow and has wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the outside. I really think that Burrow has a chance to sneak into maybe being a top 5, maybe even a top 3 quarterback if some of that pass rate is really sustainable. I know that's kind of a bold prediction, but with those wide receivers and talking about that inflated pass rate, if all those things kind of mesh together, I don't think it's like the craziest of suggestions, but one that would probably also get me canceled. So we'll see.
No, I totally get the Burrow thing, and I know Burrow, for those who have been really analyzing draft strategies over the last couple months. I know Burrow is like a screaming regression candidate especially for touchdowns, but I think that regression can be blunted by increased pass volume and the fact that he has the best wide receiver tandem in the entire league.
Yeah,
I don't think it's close.
No.
I mean, T. Higgins would be the wide receiver 1 on 15 teams. It's like an embarrassment of riches, really. So I went with Justin Jefferson off the top because I'll explain that in just a minute because I'm up now. So I'm actually going to go with Trey Lance here because I wanted to get one dual threat quarterback, because obviously as both of you know, and I'm sure many of the people watching on YouTube know, that it's hard to overstate how valuable that rushing production from a quarterback can be. It can compensate for so much. And so even if Trey Lance struggles this year, which according to his first preseason appearance, maybe a stretch, even if he struggles through the air, I think that he can still be a top end fantasy producer because of that rushing production. I went with Justin Jefferson in the first because for the first time, the Vikings are going to actually try to utilize Justin Jefferson in a way, and especially a way like the Cooper Kupp has been used in the Rams offense. Whereas in previous iterations of this Minnesota offense, it was this kind of, hey, Jefferson, Justin, if you're listening, you line up out wide. Good luck getting open. And if you get open, we might throw it to you. No more. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to be out wide. He's going to be line up everywhere. They're going, even when the entire stadium knows where the ball is going, they can still get it to him like the Rams have done with Cooper Kupp last year. So that's why I went with him. My plan, I don't want to reveal too much of my plan here, but I would like to invest in this Vikings offense. I think that they're being underdrafted. Like Kate said with Cousins, I think that several players are being underdrafted here.
Yeah, Denny, I would like a word in discussing the wide receiver room with the Cincinnati Bengals as the top in the NFL, because let's look at what the Minnesota Vikings have with Justin Jefferson, with Adam Thielen. I think that is another arguably another one of the best tandems in the NFL, and I think it's pretty close. You don't have the youth factor with Adam Thielen, but I mean, just across the board, you have to be excited with what this team is going to accomplish with both of these wide receivers in tow. And that's why you have to be investing in Kirk Cousins. I hope I'm not spoiling your plan too much here. I'm banging the drum for Kirk Cousins all day long. I mean, why wouldn't you be if we are so deeply invested in Justin Jefferson as the wide receiver 1 and we're all touting, Adam Thielen as another candidate for 10 plus receiving touchdowns? Like, it goes back to the quarterback. Let's run it back here. He might not make it back to you, Denny. I don't know.
No, there's no chance. No chance. Although we have situated the draft where you are not able to draft Kirk Cousins. I'm kidding. Yeah. Speaking of just scoring points, maximizing points at any cost. I think that the real football narrative around Kirk Cousins, where he doesn't do great in like high pressure situations and doesn't deliver off platform, and like if the play doesn't go exactly as it's designed, he's not really going to do much, which is all relatively true. It doesn't matter for fantasy. Like I don't care. I don't care at all. I want the touchdowns. He's a product of fantasy football, I believe, in many ways, much like Matthew Stafford was in Detroit for all those years, where people would say, well, I don't want him as my real quarterback, but fantasy, piling up yards and hopefully touchdowns, it works out. So let's check in here. We have Kate taking Saquon in with her second round pick. I love Saquon. We had a blurb yesterday that said his workload this year would be massive, and I tend to believe that, since there's absolutely no one behind Saquon Barkley on the depth chart. There's Matt Breida, for goodness sakes. So tell us about that pick, Kate.
A huge fan of Saquon Barkley. It should be no surprise. I mean, you've got to just bring it back to the fact that he had some really crappy luck last year. He's returning from the torn ACL, then had some further bad luck and further bad luck. Like, this has been a guy who's his last two seasons have just been characterized by injury, which is unfortunate. But let's run it back to their 2018 season, which, he had over 2,000 scrimmage yards, 15 touchdowns. I think he's going to be in for a similar workload. And I mean, just has that potential to finish as the overall RB1. It just,
yes,
no question.
I think that's definitely in the range of outcomes. And I think that his ADP will stay somewhat suppressed because of the injuries. I know that every time we blurb about Saquon, and I'm sure Zach can attest to this, there's 15 replies right off the bat. I'm never taking this guy again. He burned me. Mm-hmm. which is a really, really suboptimal way to approach fantasy football. Injuries are not predictive. I'm fine with taking Barkley in the second round, especially if you're like doing a hero RB type build where you're taking one elite running back and then waiting until the 8th, 9th, 10th round to take your second guy. Zach, who did you take in the second round? You took Kelsey.
I did. I got Travis Kelsey. Word on the street is he's a good player. Has been good over the course of his career as of late. With some of the players who had already come off the board, some of the quarterbacks who went even at the back end of the first and then also the start of the second, I decided to go ahead and kind of pivot and get the potential tight end one on the season. Of course, the other guy could be Mark Andrews, who just went a pick here before me. But I like Kelsey's upside, obviously, as an elite tight end. We know that elite tight ends can give you a tremendous edge over the field if they, in fact, hit. In a full PPR setting, we like this a lot as well. So Kelsey was the easy one for me here. Now I'm just kind of debating where I want to go next with this pick. I think I might go with Tom Brady. He feels kind of like a decent value here as well. If I remember correctly, led the league in passing attempts last season. Certainly a stellar wide receiver core over there. Hopefully Chris Godwin comes back sooner rather than later. A lot of the reports on him out of camp have been pretty good. So I'll go ahead and go with Brady and Burrow. Hopefully I stack a pretty good offense or two good offenses there. And then Kelsey and the Chiefs has never been bad. So assuming all that works out, we'll hope that there's 3 solid picks coming off the board, and then we'll start looking probably towards wide receiver in these next couple rounds.
Are you concerned with Brady? Are you concerned about the health and strength of his offensive line? We saw last year in the playoffs, once Brady got pushed around a little bit, things kind of went sideways. Does that concern you at all, Zach?
It concerns me that they lost Ryan Jensen. Certainly, that was a big guy who, their center. They lost Ryan Jensen for the season in camp. They lost a couple other guys to free agency. So that's certainly a concern of mine. But I feel like Brady has kind of seen enough and done it all at this point in time. Where if there's anyone who knows how to adjust to a minor change or minor inconvenience in the league, it's probably going to be him. He still has great wide receiver weapons and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Russell Gage. I'm the original Russell Gage truther, self-proclaimed at least. Since 2018, I believe. So I'm always going to tout Russell Gage. Oh yeah, you should see the tweets. I have a jersey at my house of the Falcons Russell Gage jersey, but Russell Gage, love him as well. And then I like Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White also as just pass catching options out of the backfield. So if the pressure gets too hot, hopefully at worst case scenario, Brady can find a way to dump it off to some of those guys and really just keep the chains moving, and the offensive line won't be too big of a concern.
Yeah, I do think that a nicked up, less stellar offensive line, because really Tampa's offensive line since Brady got there in 2020 has been the league's best, probably, by many measures. I'm up again, sorry. So I'll get you in just a second. Okay, so just real quick, just to update folks watching here on YouTube, thanks for joining us for our full day of drafting. For the ROTOWORLD Draft Day Spectacular, as I'm calling it. We've started with a Superflex draft here. I started with Justin Jefferson. I went Trey Lance in the second, Kirk Cousins in the third. Kate, he got back to me.
I will say that was kind of my plan, to sneak around and grab Kirk Cousins back at that 3-2 turn. And it didn't happen because I saw Aaron Jones was on the board, and you know what? It's so hard to pass up.
Yes.
I've got two running backs now that both have potential to finish as the overall RB1, especially Aaron Jones with that potential target share in the absence of Devontae Adams. Like I couldn't pass that up. But I mean, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy for you. You guys are going to be very happy together. I have a feeling.
And you know what? Here's the thing. Kirk Cousins and I look like brothers, so I think that per the analytics, you have to draft someone who looks exactly like you. And so that's what I did. So I have the Cousins Jefferson stack, which I hope will be at least somewhat productive this year. I took Tyreek Hill in the fourth. And I took him over A.J. Brown, even though that was a somewhat difficult decision, and Deebo Samuel, which I guess I could have stacked Samuel with Trey Lance, but we won't talk about that. So I took Tyreek Hill because I'm not worried about Tyreek in this Miami offense. I think that he will just be jammed targets all season long. And really, like, when you look at Tyreek Hill's history without Patrick Mahomes, more specifically his time with Alex Smith under center for Kansas City before Mahomes took over, his yards per route run, which is a very sticky stat and really shows which players are efficient with their touches and which players are not. Tyreek's yards per route run stayed pretty steady with Alex Smith compared to when he finally hooked up with Patrick Mahomes. So I feel like Tua is somewhat, has some Alex Smith elements to his game. And I think that can work fine for Tyreek. Are either of you skeptical on Tyreek this year?
Go ahead, Kate.
No,
I'm not either. There's also some stats that support Tua's deep ball ability dating back to college that suggests that he may actually be able to thrive with Tyreek Hill on the outside there. And I believe even early in the NFL, in his NFL career, Tua's deep ball has not been as bad as billed by people who are trying to, say that he can't work with Tyreek Hill because he's not a deep ball thrower. I think actually in a limited sample size, the numbers suggest that his deep ball passing has actually been pretty good. So I'm not out on Tyreek at all. I've been drafting him a lot this offseason. And then, of course, Jalen Waddle is, I think, a fine pivot off of him, too. I think he's going to get plenty of work as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, a 50% target share combined with Tyreek and Waddle, which, that'll work.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Zach, who did you take? You took Mike Evans here. Oh, to pair with Tom Brady. That's a great move there.
I did. I wanted to get T. Higgins as well. I was kind of between the two of them. I thought maybe Higgins would make it back to me. That did not happen. But there's other ways we can get a Bengal stack in this lineup if I really want to do that. I think, Brady and Evans is obviously going to be hopefully another great connection for the 2022 season. So I went with Evans as a rather reliable option. I also think his chances of finishing as a wide receiver 1 should probably be a little bit higher than T. Higgins, which that obviously factored in as well. Although I do think it's possible that from just a top 12 standpoint, both Evans and Higgins could be in the top 12. I would just give Evans a slight edge over Higgins there. So that was the thesis behind that play.
And then Kate, you went with Diontae Johnson for your 4th rounder.
I did, and I'm a Steelers pick, so that call me a homer, if you will. But two straight seasons of 140 or more targets. I don't think that's going to change all that much. I'm not looking at Chase Claypool as a threat. Obviously, George Pickens is the star of Steelers training camp, but this is still Diontae Johnson's wide receiver 1 role to lose. And I think by all accounts, we should be encouraged by, the workings of the offense that we saw in the first preseason game. I was expecting a disaster, but let's say Kenny Pickett is under center for most of the season. We're going to have a plenty of targets. He's probably going to be a PPR monster if Pickett does not spread the field a bit more. Diontae Johnson's probably going to, once again, be a huge value in fantasy drafts.
Yes. I do love George Pickens. I'm sure you do too, Kate. And I feel like I feel like we should have saw it coming. I'm kind of down on myself about not really. I was underestimating George Pickens coming in. I think that his presence, could possibly ding Diontae Johnson a little bit. As far as target volume goes, although Diontae Johnson is a guy, getting open is a skill. And we know this, several, peripheral stats tell us this every year, and Diontae Johnson excels every single year. So I do like him as, in standard format, in more standard formats as like a wide receiver 2 or 3. I think that works. I want to just mention here that I love the team. T. Miller here started with Kyler, went with DeAndre Swift, and then Devontae Adams, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle. That to me is a really, really good start. Devontae Adams in the 3rd. That feels a little silly to me. Why did we let that happen, guys?
I wanted him there too, but that didn't quite go my way. I had him queued up at the top, so that would have been my original go-to. So good pick there. I agree.
Yeah, I know. The narrative around Devontae Adams and Derek Carr is tough to ignore. I was listening to a Raiders podcast the other day for some reason, and they and the
okay?
Yeah, I'm not doing well.
Okay.
But they're talking about this years long friendship and the fact that they've always wanted to play together. And I know, look, you can't measure that with stats, and that doesn't fit on my spreadsheet. Okay, let's just say that. But it is something I think about. Yes, Devontae Adams is playing with way more target competition this year. I'm up next. Sorry. With way more target competition with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. If Waller's okay, I guess he should be, according to Adam Schefter. But I still think that he will be a target hog, and I think that's a really good pick. So I'm coming up here. I have 2 quarterbacks. I don't want to lose my mind with another here. I'm not interested in Kittle or Waller at this point. I know you'll be shocked to hear this, but I might go with another wide receiver.
I thought you're going to say Davis Mills here.
I would never. I don't even know who that is. I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton. And
great pick.
Yeah, thank you. The reports out of Broncos camp are that Russell Wilson, when in doubt, has looked for Courtland Sutton in every situation, both intermediate and downfield. I also think, Tim Patrick, the really unfortunate injury that's going to knock him out for the entire season. I think that the loss of Patrick makes Sutton, I don't know, just slightly more appealing. It definitely makes Jerry Jeudy more appealing, but I also think it's a bump for Sutton. What do you think about that, Zach?
No, I agree. And Sutton's been the one who I think has been getting a little bit more of the training camp buzz as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of been the Russell Wilson and Courtland Sutton connection. The other nice thing about Sutton is that we've kind of already seen him do it with some pretty bad quarterbacks in recent years. So it's encouraging to know that the perceived ability to break out and have a big season is one that's already been confirmed by Sutton in the past. Jeudy, we're still waiting on. Certainly injuries last season did not help him get there, but when your quarterbacks are Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, it's gonna be hard to break out at times, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I like knowing that Sutton has done it before with underwhelming quarterback play. And he bounced back well from his torn ACL from the 2020 season. So for me, it is Sutton over Jeudy by a slim margin. And even here, we see they went back to back. Jeudy went immediately after you took Sutton. So it's close, but the Patrick injury, I think, does prop up Sutton just a little bit further in my rankings.
Yes. And Kate, where are you on Sutton?
All in. I think that he profiles as that alpha, that big dog. I mean, where Russell Wilson excels is his ability in passing down the field. I think, we've all been so wrapped up in the backfield and the discussions surrounding, is Melvin Gordon going to limit the ceiling of Javonte Williams, which he will. We've been so obsessed with the running backs here that the wide receivers really have gotten lost. But if we're kind of comparing apples to oranges here, Courtland Sutton profiles as that DK Metcalf, whereas, might look at Jerry Jeudy as that smoother guy who, is going to profile maybe closer to that Tyler Lockett role. I think Courtland Sutton is going to be that guy that, Russell Wilson looks to in those crazy situations where the play breaks down. And you know what? It works out more often than not for Russell Wilson. So let's go.
Absolutely. I also love KJ Hamler for that moonball role from Russell Wilson. I think that he fits maybe the Tyler Lockett mold a little more than Sutton does. And, Sutton, we'll get off Sutton in a second. I don't want to make this entire stream about Sutton, but, he wasn't right last year. And he was coming off a devastating knee injury from 2020. So, sometimes these guys don't come back 100%. I know, I feel like we've gotten accustomed to it or almost spoiled by these tremendous athletes coming back from devastating, career-threatening injuries to be just fine the next year. It doesn't happen for everybody. So I think we should keep that in mind as we kind of evaluate where Sutton should fall here. I want to just reset for the folks watching on YouTube. Thanks for watching. I hope that you're getting something out of this Superflex mock and how we're approaching it. This is the kickoff, the start of a full day, over 12 hours. I'm being told, yes, I'm being told over 14 hours or up to 14 hours of draft coverage. We are doing drafts throughout the day. Different formats. We're doing everything that you could ever imagine to help you prepare for your upcoming draft. It is finally draft season. Thanks for joining us for this Roto World Draft Spectacular. I'm just going to keep saying that. It's not in the copy I was given, but I'm just going to keep saying it because it's a good word. So let's catch up here with the draft. It looks like Kate took Rashad Penny after Travis Etienne. Here, can you talk about those back-to-back running back picks?
Yeah, I mean, that apparently is my strategy right now, and I'm kind of employing that best player available mentality. And for me, it just happens to have been running backs in 4 out of the 5 last picks. Rashad Penny, last guy on the board that I think truly has RB1 potential. In his 7 career games with 12 or more rushing attempts, he scored a touchdown in every single one of them. 2 or more touchdowns in 3 of those games. In those 7 appearances, he had 100 or more scrimmage yards in every single one. He's been a very efficient running back dating back to San Diego State. And that hasn't changed. Now we have Ken Walker, who's dealing with a hernia. TBD on the severity of that. But I mean, if Rashad Penny is going to be seeing the bulk of the work here, watch out, because he's probably going to finish once again I would venture to say as a RB1 in 2022 if he is top dog.
Yeah, so you have Penny in his, nuclear final 6 or 7 weeks of the 2021 season. So Penny led the league in yards before contact, yards after contact. I believe he led an evasion rate. Every stat that tells us, if a running back is excelling, he was the leader in. That's incredible. I mean, it really was one of the more like special 6-week runs that I've seen in fantasy football, where he just seemed unstoppable. I do think the Ken Walker injury and the fact that we don't really know if he's going to be ready for the start of the season, I think that makes Penny a little more appealing, and it might make Walker more appealing as like a late round flyer now that you don't have to use much draft capital to take him. So Zach, who did you went with? Tell me who you went with here. I've lost track.
I went with DK Metcalf.
You went with Metcalf. Okay.
Not a player who I've been wild about drafting this season. I actually this is terrible. I'm so hypocritical. I just put him in a regression article last week, and I wrote him down as a candidate for negative regression in the touchdown department, seeing fewer than he did last season with Russell Wilson. But I do think there's a point in time where sometimes talent's going to win out. DK Metcalf is obviously a Greek god on the football field with just his physique and his athletic ability. He has been a tremendous touchdown producer. He's been highly efficient. My hope is that not too much of that is going to be tied to Russell Wilson. I think a significant amount of it will be, which is why he was in my article. But there's still going to be some negative game scripts I think that Seattle is going to face this season, where no matter how much Pete Carroll wants to run the ball, at some point in time, I think they're going to have to pass it for the sake of actually winning games. And if that's the case, then I think Metcalf becomes a very viable option here. Having him as my third wide receiver and just kind of seeing the way this board is unfolding, knowing some other guys I can get based on ADP. I'm drafting as my third wide receiver. We'll see if that actually ends up being how I end up viewing him once this roster is complete. But for the value here at this point in the time of the draft, I like him a lot. And then I'm on the clock here. We'll go ahead and go with Michael Thomas, Saints wide receiver. I can GM him or Metcalf into my flex.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier a lot of really great reports out of Michael Thomas. He's going closer to the top 30 in wide receivers right now. I think I just made him about the wide receiver 27 or 28 in this draft, so he probably wouldn't have made it back to me. And we're going a little bit of zero RB for the people. We'll see how long we can keep it going.
Yes, we are. So I wanted to mention real quick my 6th round pick with the 3rd round and the 6th round, 3rd pick in the 6th round. I went with George Kittle, and I actually said the pick before, I'm not taking Kittle, but when you have Trey Lance, and when you suppose if you're banking on Trey Lance having a decent season by taking him in the wherever I took him 2nd round, then you got to think that George Kittle will be involved. So sometimes I think in drafts, this is just like a higher level kind of approach to a draft. Sometimes you have to draft like you're right, draft like you're correct. And if I'm correct on Trey Lance, then Kittle makes sense there. I'm not a Kittle guy. Again, he's way too good of a blocker, which is a problem for fantasy. And we're not in a points per block league, unfortunately. Points per pancake league, I should say. So my pick is coming up. Running back is gross. Antonio Gibson is there, and we can talk about him for a moment. But I'm guessing that he's going to fall even further because he's it seems 3 days away from being the RB2 for the Edmonton Elks of the CFL. Yes. So I don't think I can take him here. I love my Elks, by the way. And you know what? I just saw, folks, we are getting late breaking word that Gabriel Davis is still on the board, and I'm not letting him go here. I'm taking Gabe Davis as my wide receiver 4 in this Superflex format, so I can start him in as a flex. And I get that Gabe Davis is probably not going to be super consistent this year. Okay. It's going to be, it might be bumpy. It might be up and down, but on the weeks that he hits, you're winning. And I think that's important to remember. Zach, are you on team Gabe Davis or are you a skeptic?
I am a skeptic. I had some numbers that I pulled up earlier on when I
All
went
right,
on
get
a
off the
show
street. Get off the
a
street.
few
You're
weeks
out. You're
ago.
out of here. Get out of here.
I'll see myself out. I'll see myself out. My one concern with Gabe Davis was, and I don't have the exact numbers, but basically the outside receiver, the outside wide receiver 2 receiver for the Bills under Josh Allen has typically been third in the target tree for the last several years, with obviously Stephon Diggs and then slot receiver Cole Beasley being the ones that scoop up a lot of those highly coveted targets in the upper portion of the target share tree. So while I do like the Gabe Davis talent, and I could be very wrong on this. I'm not even completely committed to this whole take, but I'm going with it. My concern is that Stephon Diggs is inevitably going to still be the top receiver there, and there seems to still be a priority in the slot as well with Isaiah McKenzie and/or Jamison Crowder. They went and they brought in James Cook to also catch passes. So my concern is that maybe that outside wide receiver 2 spot that Gabe Davis is going to occupy may still be the one that doesn't receive quite the amount of targets that we need for him to pay off at ADP. I'd like him a little bit lower in ADP personally. I'd probably still go with him, but I'm concerned that there may be some of those weeks where he's just not really offering up the return that we want to see on a week-to-week basis here. Now, he went as a wide receiver 3 in this draft, so I think that's actually pretty good. But in a lot of other drafts, he's going closer to wide receiver 2 value, which kind of has me off of him.
Sure. I do understand that point of view. Kate, I'm going to ask you real quick about Gabe Davis. But first, I wanted to mention that Davis will be among the players discussed in detail with Matthew Berry, Michael Smith, and Chris Sims tonight on the NBC, the NFL on NBC YouTube channel as we cap off our ROTOWORLD Draft Day with the ROTOWORLD Draft Guide show. And so tune into that. We can see our new colleague, Matthew Berry, talk about Gabe Davis and what he could bring to your fantasy team in 2022. Kate, where do you stand on the most polarizing player in the history of fantasy football?
I'm out, especially on draft cost. I'm sorry, Denny, but wide receiver 27 right now on Fantasy Pros, half PPR ADP. I have to imagine that that's going to continue to climb leading up to your actual fantasy drafts. But he has played 32 career games, average 8.2 PPR points per game. And for fantasy, he's had just one single finish as a wide receiver 1. Only 4 career finishes as a wide receiver 2 or better. We saw virtually no growth between the 2020 and 2021 seasons. I think this is an offense that is going to spread the ball around. I think Josh Allen is a good enough quarterback to make the reads where he's not just going to funnel targets to any player not named Stephon Diggs. Now, is there a chance or a very good possibility that Gabriel Davis finishes somewhere around wide receiver 27 at the end of the season? Yes. Mm-hmm. But do I project that you're going to know when to start him on any given week? Probably not. So he's one of those volatile players that I'm going to say, if I have a very safe roster, which Denny, I'm going to say, I think you have a very volatile roster.
I do.
I don't think Gabe Davis is the right pick for your roster. And I think you have to assess where you're at in terms of your roster construction, how you feel. This is like one of those picks that I would say I need a safer surrounding cast. And
I agree.
That's kind of where I'm at.
I agree with you. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I tend to draft very volatile rosters. I think from the standpoint of having comfort with your team, I know that anecdotally, when I've left a draft and in the past, and I felt very comfortable with my team, man, I'm set, I'm solid on this and this position, every position, I got it set. Those are the teams that traditionally have not fared well for me. It's when I leave a draft thinking, oh my God, have I drafted the worst team ever? That tends to be where, and sometimes it is the worst team, and sometimes it's the best team ever. And I'm just scoring a million points a week. So yeah, the volatility is certainly there. I will say on Gabe Davis, if you give him a full complement of snaps, which is not something that he has enjoyed in this Buffalo offense, I think that's the difference. And according to beat writers and coaches and everybody over the past couple months, he is going to get that full complement of snaps in the very potent Buffalo passing game. So those are our takes on, again, the most polarizing player in the history of football.
He's going to be good, and I'm going to hate that I didn't draft him. I know that's what's going to happen, but I can't steer away from the numbers.
The goal is to hate myself as least as possible at the end of the season. I feel like I could do that maybe less if I have fewer Gabe Davis shares on my roster, but who's to say, honestly?
Yeah, and if he does have a good season, I'm going to send you both Gabe Davis t-shirts or jerseys.
Nice.
Okay?
I'll come pick it up.
Yeah,
I love free gear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So we have a viewer. If you're here watching on YouTube, we have a viewer, Andy, who has been really bullish on somebody, for the love of God, taking Chris Godwin, and we finally have Chris Godwin going in the 7th round. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Yeah, in the 7th, after Gabe Davis, just before Amari Cooper. Do we think that this is egregious, Zach? Did he fall too far?
He did fall too far. I thought about taking him on my team. If this was a best ball roster, I would have been happy to stack Brady, Evans, Godwin here. I went ahead and decided to go with some other receivers, having already had 2 parts of that Buccaneers offense. Sometimes trying to predict whether or not both players are worth a weekly start on a redraft league can be a difficult decision. So I went off of Godwin, having already had Evans. But if I didn't, I would have been fine with going someone like Godwin, maybe even over Michael Thomas in that spot, which was an option that I had. But I do think that he fell a little bit too far. So whoever got him there at the 709, it's pretty nice value, adding him to the 3 wide receivers they drafted beforehand.
That's right. Yeah, I tend to think that that's probably the case. But again, like Godwin suffered his injury very late last year, right? And was it January or late December? I mean,
I think it was late December.
That's really late. I don't know. That sort of timeline freaks me out a little bit. I'm not saying that this was a bad pick at all. It was probably a fine pick, but Chris Godwin is not someone who I've been pursuing very much. And maybe that's just the way I build my teams, where, I usually take wide receivers early on. So I'm not jonesing for Chris Godwin in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, wherever he's going, depending on format. We have a viewer here who says 14 hours to get me some food and drinks. You're not allowed to leave, you guys. This is the Hotel California. You're here for the whole time. No food, no drink. You're going to get through this with us. You're going to watch all of our whole day of drafting, of mock drafting, of sharing our thoughts on players and strategies. I think it will be very helpful for you as you prepare for your own draft. And I believe this weekend and then into next weekend is going to be the busiest drafting weekends of the whole year. Do you all do any in-person drafting? Kate, do you do in-person drafting at all?
So unfortunately, my wife and I just bought a house in Houston, Texas, to be close to family, and that family does not play fantasy football.
Oh.
So I'm thinking we need to sell the house and book it as quickly as possible. And we're new here; we don't have any friends, so this will be, I think, my first year without any in-person drafts, and I'm going to be literally like breaking out in hives as I watch everybody discuss their home league drafts, but I am pretty excited because I was just invited to my father-in-law's legendary league. Sent me the invite yesterday. It was a very formal invitation. He wrote me a whole paragraph about the seriousness of the invite that I've just received.
Really?
The league has been he pointed out to me several times that this league has been in existence since the year after I was born. Basically, he sent me the rules, do not ask questions in the chat. This whole spiel. And that's to say that though I don't get to draft in person, I do that's my one small victory.
Yeah.
And also that means I'm the favorite in-law. So
absolutely. This is huge. This is huge news. I'm glad we could break the news here on the stream. Thank you.
Are you allowed to talk about it on here? Are you sure you're allowed to talk about it on here? It sounds like this is pretty serious.
It's probably surmount to Fight Club in some way, but The number one rule of Pat Magdziuk's fantasy league is you don't talk about Pat Magdziuk's fantasy league, but he's probably not watching this, unfortunately, Denny. So I think I'm in the clear.
Okay.
But shout out to Papa Magdziuk because I'm excited for the invite.
You can send him this later. And listen, you know what? I'm on the clock. I should just stop talking for a moment. So I actually took Marcus Mariota as my QB3 in the 9th round. My 10th round pick is up, and guys, I feel like, wait, has Ramondre Stevenson been taken? Did he? Oh shoot!
Damian Harris is still on the board.
Oh my gosh, guys,
that's just where we're at.
Ramondre's gone. I drafted Miles Sanders, and he's injured right now. That was a great decision.
My whole my life has been turned upside down by that Stevenson pick. This is terrible. I'm tilting so hard. Oh, this is horrible. All right, I'm gonna go with Tony Pollard.
Please don't do it,
man.
I knew that was coming.
You mean the leading slot receiver for the Dallas Cowboys?
I mean, it'll be fine, right? Tell me it'll be fine. Oh man, I should have gone. This is the thing. When I tried to get cute, okay? I knew Stevenson was going to go soon. Okay, with all the hype that he's getting. Yesterday, for those who missed it, we have a blurb on NBCSportsEdge.com, powered by ROTOWORLD, where Bill Belichick gave the ultimate compliment to Ramondre Stevenson and said that he had improved both as a pass catcher and as a blocker, as a pass protector. This is big news. This is, we're sounding the alarms on this development, and it makes me want Stevenson over Damian Harris because of the upside chances there. But I got cute, and you never get cute. You should just take who you want. And I got cute, and I said, I'm going to take Mariota, and on the comeback, I'm taking Stevenson, and I messed it up, guys. I messed it up. I had to take Pollard, but maybe it'll be okay.
It probably will be.
Are you trying to convince you or us?
I'm desperately trying to convince myself.
It doesn't sound like it's working.
No, I feel a little bit sick here. Sky Moore, is picked by 10th round pick by Nelly 33 here. I like that. That's Nelly's wide receiver 3 in the Superflex format. I'm starting to come around on Sky Moore a little bit. I do think that he probably will be volatile in a Kansas City offense that will spread it around. Kate, where do you stand on Sky Moore?
Love Sky Moore. I think he's a great fit for what they're doing in Kansas City. I think he's a great fit for the needs they have at wide receiver. And honestly, I think this is probably the most deep receiving core that the Chiefs have had in the Patrick Mahomes era, despite the lack of Tyreek Hill. Love him, but I do think that there are other players on the board that I'm going to take ahead of him, and I'll probably get to that in just a second because I'm almost up, guys. And
sure,
this pick is going to be a bombshell.
Oh, okay. Well, we're looking forward to it. Zach, Sky Moore, his college stats really scream deep threat. A guy who probably will have a high ADOT. Do you think that we might be underestimating his ability to work underneath and as a more intermediate target, or do you think that he will be mainly used as a deep threat in that offense?
No, I think he has a chance to be used around. The way this whole Chiefs offense is shaping up, I really think is going to kind of I think they're going to prove us wrong in a lot of ways with how they deploy some of these players. I also think they're going to surprise us with how some of these players, MVS is being touted as the obvious deep threat. Is there any chance that maybe he sees a little bit more intermediate work? We don't know. I think history would probably lend us to believe that he won't. But I just think there's so many ways that they're trying to reinvent what they had over the last season with Tyreek Hill that they're going to probably have to get a little bit creative with guys who we've maybe stereotyped as being a certain kind of player. So some of the plays that we've seen out of Sky Moore in camp so far have not been exclusively, deep passes and things of that nature. He's made some impressive catches breaking off of routes against defenders and things of that nature. So I like Sky Moore as kind of a versatile, do-it-all kind of wide receiver. I hope that ends up being the case here. I think Juju is probably the one who's going to be most locked into the short intermediate game. Sky Moore could be a little bit of a wild card there, but I do think that he has a chance to be a decent wide receiver too on Kansas City's offense. The question is going to be whether or not he can usurp MVS on the depth chart at some point in time this season. But
Sure.
no, I do like him a lot, and I think that he's going to be used in a variety of ways.
As a MVS truther, I'm not thrilled about Sky Moore's emergence as the likely deep threat. But what can you do?
Tough to take.
It is. Perhaps I should just stop truthing for MVS. That is one option I have. So, Kate, you said you were going to have a surprise pick. You went with Tyler Lockett. Explain yourself.
So the surprise is less so about my pick and more so about the fact that y'all let him fall to the end of the 10th round, because I was eyeing him several rounds ago. And I just kept kind of waiting and pivoting. And I'm like, there's no way this dude makes it back to me. But I mean, Tyler Lockett, 3 straight seasons of 1,000 receiving yards. Yes, that was with Russell Wilson as quarterback. And do you get a downgrade when you go to Geno Smith or Drew Lock, depending on the way the wind is blowing? Absolutely. You get a huge downgrade at quarterback, but that does not mean that there is not potential for Tyler Lockett in his 3 games without Russell Wilson. Still on pace over a 17-game span for over 1,000 receiving yards, just 5 fewer receiving yards per game when you've got Russell Wilson out of the mix, which I don't think that is the big difference there. Will he score fewer touchdowns? Yes, but as my wide receiver 4, I think it's really hard to find another guy with the kind of upside and potential that Tyler Lockett has. I mean, over the last 3 seasons has had 6 games of 30 or more fantasy points. The upside is tremendous. And I don't think the floor is as low as we think it is.
I can get with that as a drafter who enjoys some volatility. I can get with Lockett where you took him. And if he doesn't shake out the way we think he might, then that's okay. You picked him in the 10th round. It's not going to kill you. I will say Dameon Pierce going in the 11th to the team called, what is it called here? T. Miller. You've once again ruined my life. I was really not to be dramatic, but
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. We're done for today. No, no, please stay. And Dameon Pierce, really, really over the last week has shown, I think, and according to beat writers for the Texans, Pierce is primed to take over that backfield. I can't deny it anymore. I've been kind of Marlon Macking a little bit, which is yeah. It's I feel like maybe that's the boomer in me, being like, you know what, the Texans are an old school organization. They're going to get carries to the veteran, but if the rookie is good enough, then he's going to force his way onto the field. And maybe Dameon Pierce is not going to be a 3-down guy. Maybe he's primarily going to be an early down back. But hey, in the 11th, 12th, 13th round, wherever you get him, you're taking the early down back. Like that's cool. That's a great value.
Last year in 2021, Dameon Pierce led the FBS and PFF rushing grade, ranked 4th in missed forced tackles per rush attempt. Like, this dude is a tank. He's built like a tank, and he wouldn't have been a 4th round pick if he had a higher touch total with the Gators. And I mean, even with his low touch total last season, had 16 total touchdowns at Florida. Like, the dude he's an RB1 when given specifically given an RB1 workload. And I think that's what he's in for. I wish I would have taken him, and I'm bummed that I didn't. But with the way that I built this team, I went very RB heavy early and have kind of filled in since. It wasn't a pick that made sense for my roster necessarily with the needs I had. But I mean, Dameon Pierce in the 11th round, you're getting a steal, and you're getting a guy that in my rankings and my projections right now, I have finishing inside the top 24.
All right. Well, hey, I think that's reasonable. I just wanted to mention real quick, I took after Pollard, I took Nyheim Hines, and that's sort of a bet on the Indianapolis offense being a little more pass heavy, and once again, we have Frank Reich and all of the Colts coaches talking up Nyheim Hines as a pass catching threat. 1 year, Kate and Zach, it's going to happen, and I don't want to be late for it. So I took Hines as my RB3. My pick is coming up next, and I will preview that pick. Well, actually, I don't want to give it away because I don't want someone to snipe me here. Well, here's what I'll say. I need to increase the dog quotient of my team. My team is woefully short on dog.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'll no. Oh man.
Continue, Denny.
I should have shut my mouth. Man, see, that's what happens when you have to fill 14 hours of airtime. You end up saying something that ruins your draft. I was gonna go with Pickens to increase
the overall dog.
Man, I'll have no dog now.
That's tough.
That is tough. I'm reeling now. I have no idea who to pick. Oh my God. This is the worst thing ever.
Just end the live stream. Just click end.
I can't. Why did I do that to myself? All right, fine. You know what? I'll go with Julio. God bless America. I mean,
That's an old dog.
That is, I missed out on the young dog.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the oldest dog alive in Julio Jones.
Denny, I think what you did, and this is always a very generous thing to do. Like when a couple goes to like their local shelter and they adopt the dog that's been there the longest, that nobody wanted. You are that guy. So congratulations on your new pet. We're all very happy for you.
I hope the old dog Julio can deliver at least some usable weeks. In a Tampa offense that should still be pass heavy, I do like those chances. I wanted to say about Pickens. So after Pickens' incredible performance against Seattle, where he just dominated, he is now the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, according to our friends at PointsBet. That is really something. So congratulations to those, and this is not, including myself, to those who knew how much dog George Pickens had in him and said, I'm hammering Pickens Offensive Rookie of the Year chances early in the offseason, and now you're set. I feel like you're set. I mean, barring injury, and this is a guy who has struggled with injury, but barring injury, I think that he should be the favorite. Zach, do you think Pickens can be? Oh, I'm sorry. Is this your pick? I don't want to mess you up here.
No, you're okay.
You're up next. Do you think Pickens can be startable in 12-team leagues?
I think in a format like this, he could certainly be startable. We've got 3 wide receivers plus the extra flex spot, so I like that a lot. I mean, essentially, you're hoping that you're going to get better than wide receiver 48 production as somebody when you're starting someone in a 12-team league with up to 4 spots. I think he can definitely do that. Even the more recent reports on Kenny Pickett has kind of been optimistic. And let me get my dog real quick.
Yeah. Who's
the true dog?
Oh, Rashad White.
He's had so much dog in him. I'm convinced he's not making friends at training camp with some of the way he talks about how he's just coming for people's jobs publicly. But,
yeah, he really does. I feel like
it's
an underreported thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, I like George Pickens a lot in 12-team leagues. You got up to 4 spots you can start him in. And we've seen so many wide receivers produce without having necessarily the best quarterbacks. Andre Johnson, if you don't remember, has built a career on having never met a good quarterback in his locker room. So Andre Johnson had a great career with underwhelming quarterback play. So it can happen for wide receivers where the quarterback's not necessarily the best, and the wide receivers still put out good numbers, which can be based on a number of things. But I think that George Pickens certainly has enough dog in him, as you pointed out, to be a productive receiver, regardless of who's throwing in the ball.
I have to say, our fellow drafter here, MVDB2, that's all I can see of the person's name here. This person is bullish on the New York Jets offense, and if you're right, you're going to win this league. You have Zach Wilson, most recently picked in the 12th round. You have Garrett Wilson from the 11th round, and you have Breece Hall in the 5th round. I don't think any of those are egregious picks. But
A little bold, Zach Wilson over Joe Flacco. I will say that.
That is bold. And like I said, sometimes you have to draft like you're right. Well, this person is drafting like they are right. Like the Jets offense is going to shock people this year. So, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it works. Your pick is coming up, Kate. Please do not say anything to tip off your pick like I did.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I need my player to remain on the board, so I'm just going to keep talking and talking and talking. I only have 7 seconds left until my pick, so I'm just going to keep talking and talking, and then we're going to talk about.
Yeah, here we go.
Kenny Gainwell,
Yeah,
running back
good.
for the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to talk about like an offense that you believe in? I 100% believe in this Eagles offense. I think AJ Brown is just going to take the top off of everything. Obviously, we're looking at a team that their RB1 effectively was their quarterback last year. So I think there's plenty of room here, but Kenny Gainwell was the receiving running back to have in that offense. Miles Sanders not practicing. I believe it's a hamstring injury. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell could potentially lead the running back room in touches in the 2022 season. And I think he's a great value, especially in PPR formats.
I wanted to quickly say, I know you're on the clock, Kate. I wanted to quickly say for those joining us, thank you for joining us. This is our kickoff of a day-long, probably 12 to 14 hours, somewhere in that range of drafting. This is our ROTOWORLD Draft Day. I'm calling it the Spectacular. I wanted to mention that you can get our draft guide now. It's to prep for your draft, the latest player rankings, projections, and more. We've got you covered with all league formats, including what we're doing here, Superflex, and draft strategies. Plus, it's powered by ROTOWORLD, the premier source for fantasy information and player news. For a limited time, you can use the code DRAFT1. That's DRAFT, the number 1, to get access to the guide for $1, for $1. Again, you cannot afford not to take us up on that offer. So you use that. We do have some comments among the viewers about Alexander Madison as this must get late round guy. I tend to disagree this year because this is not, this is an entirely new Vikings coaching staff, new front office. I don't think Madison is the running back insurance for Dalvin Cook. I think it's probably one of the other two guys in the Minnesota backfield, including Ty Chandler and then Kenny Nwangu. I do struggle with that pronunciation, but both of those guys are superb athletes. They both did very well in the week 1 of preseason. I know that doesn't hold much water, but I think the days of saying, oh, you know what, like if Dalvin Cook goes down, then Madison becomes an RB1. I think those days are over, and I think we have to adjust how we see that Minnesota backfield. Do you have any thoughts on that, Zach?
I mean, I've still been taking Brian Robinson goes after I just move him all the way up my board to take him the next pick. I do think that it is still probably going to be Madison there. Just given kind of the history that he's established as being able to kind of fill in for Cook in that role. But you do make a good point about, I believe it's Nwangu is how you say the last name.
Sorry, yeah.
You do make a good point about Nwangu's athleticism and what he may be able to bring to the table in year 2. I believe Madison is also in a contract year after this season. So if I'm correct in that, feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm not. But if I am correct in that, then I think there's some incentive perhaps for the Vikings to consider pivoting to another direction to maybe give that backup workload to someone else who is maybe going to be on the team in 2023 and beyond. But I think I am still taking Madison. I do like him late here. I personally think there's a lot of really good running backs here late. It's just kind of
of course you do.
Yeah, all these horrible running backs are my favorite ones to draft. I was between Michael Carter and Alexander Madison, honestly. Carter I ended up taking because I think he could have a little bit more standalone value, even playing with Breece Hall this season. We know he's a good pass catcher. We know that he's capable of making a lot of plays in the receiving game and also the running game. So I went with Michael Carter over Madison just from a pure standalone value perspective, and needing to have guys on the field which I don't think Madison's going to be that for my roster. But it's a pretty close call. I think it was kind of splitting hairs for me there, but Carter won out. I'm really upset about Brian Robinson though. I'm going to need some time to recover.
Yeah, I thought that that was your guy. You got to get your guy.
I debated it, but
no, your T levels are not sufficient. I don't think.
I know, yeah.
So I'm actually going to go here with Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'll tell you why in a moment. All right, I have secured Wan'Dale. I think I was talking over the weekend at the expo with Pat Daugherty and Pat Corain and Kyle Dvorchak and Lawrence Jackson and others about the fact that I think that Wan'Dale is it's going to be Wan'Dale's season. Kadarius Toney's already banged up. We know he has a history of just constantly being banged up. Kenny Golladay might be toast. And so I think this offense, this Giants offense, which should be somewhat productive, better than last year for sure, is going to run through two guys, and that's Kate's RB1, Saquon Barkley, and Wan'Dale Robinson. And here's the thing: we had a Giants beat writer on our podcast 2 weeks ago who said straight up that Wan'Dale Robinson is the running back insurance for Saquon Barkley. Like that really raised my eyebrows to the point where my eyebrows were actually arched for about 35 minutes afterward. I had to go to the local ER to get that fixed. But it was and Wan'Dale, I think we'll see a lot of touches in that Brian Daboll offense. Kate, are you at all excited about Wan'Dale this year?
I'm not. And I think that just kind of comes on the back of me not being overly excited about this offense in general.
Sure.
I'm willing to make the investment in Saquon Barkley because he's probably going to touch the ball 300 times. It just kind of remains like everything else in this offense remains TBD for me. So I'm not targeting Wan'Dale, but I understand the upside. I'd be more inclined to make that investment in a dynasty league than I would a redraft. But I mean, that could be the rookie pick that I miss on. So I understand the upside.
So and by the way, for those watching on YouTube here, you are going to want to hear what Peter King has to say about Wan'Dale Robinson after seeing him at Giants training camp. That'll be tonight at 8 p.m. on the ROTOWORLD Draft Guide show with Matthew Berry. Peter King has been very bullish on how the Giants will use Wan'Dale Robinson. And for those not familiar with Wan'Dale Robinson, for people who haven't been drafting teams since like February 1st, Wan'Dale Robinson has a history in college of incredible rushing production before he had incredible receiving production. So he can do a little bit of everything. I do like him as a late round pick. So it looks like, guys, our draft is all wrapped up. Zach, we'll start with you. Evaluating your team, are there any picks that you feel like you knocked it out of the park, and any picks that you kind of regret?
Well, I think Michael Thomas has a chance to really be the legitimate knock it out of the park pick. We've seen what he can do in the past, just playing with Drew Brees, who's obviously a little bit different than Jameis Winston. I've been told not quite the same talent level there, but nevertheless, I do like Michael Thomas a lot. If he ends up finding a way to become a top 20, a top 15 wide receiver, then he becomes a very easy value in the 7th round. I like Elijah Moore a lot as well. I've written about him in a couple of articles just from a pure efficiency standpoint. He's been very good. So I like kind of the way that I was able to close out my wide receiver portion of the draft, especially with Metcalf as my wide receiver 3. I think those two guys I took after him could very well have a chance at actually outplaying him, which isn't ideal when you're taking guys, earlier. You want them to essentially be better than the guys you drafted afterwards. But I think there's going to be enough moving parts in a redraft league where maybe Metcalf can still fit in this roster. He was kind of added because of the value I thought he was at that point in the draft, but I'm actually higher on the two guys I took after him.
Gotcha.
from that standpoint. And then running back, so one I'd easily give. I'll trade Kate for Kenny Gainwell after this draft ends if she would like to. I wish I would have actually held off on Sanders. He's injured right now. I would have gone with Kenny Gainwell later, but I do like Sanders. I took him and then I realized he was injured. I get paid to analyze football and I didn't know this. It's terrible, but I would have gone away with that. But then from the 0 RB build perspective, the one thing I really tried to do was target running backs who offer more than just rushing upside. Damian Harris being the exception, but James Cook, Rashad White, Michael Carter, and even Eno Benjamin to close it out. Guys who are mostly good offenses, maybe not the Jets with Carter, but guys who are mostly good offenses and also profile as receiving backs and not just pure ball carriers. So wanting to really try to find ways to capitalize on points from a number of different angles is a good way to approach a 0 RB draft, which is why I made sure I got running backs who fit the pass catching profile, in addition to being able to also hopefully shoulder a workload should they ever be called upon.
The pass catching for running backs, and I know you both are familiar with this, but I think it is generally in fantasy football drafts generally underrated, and because the two main things we want out of our running backs, pass catching and goal line work. We want touchdowns and we want pass catching, a la James Conner last year, where Chase Edmonds took a lot of the between the 20s sort of empty calories touches. Whatever, we're not super interested in that. It's a role that I think Antonio Gibson could probably end up with this year in the Washington offense. We want those receptions, we want those touchdowns. So when in doubt, look for that. Before we get into Kate's team and her thoughts on how she constructed that roster, I wanted to mention the schedule for today's draft day spectacular. We just did our Superflex mock, not Super Mock Flex. At 10:45 a.m. Eastern time, we have draft mistakes to avoid, and then at 12:15 p.m. Eastern time, we have a non-PPR mock draft. I've never even heard of that, but no, I'm kidding. It's a fine format. Check it out at 12:15, and then at 2 p.m. we have a draft Q&A. I will be doing that, and then 3:15 a best ball mock, and of course, best ball is very different than from managed leagues. So if you are getting into best ball this summer, then make sure to check that out. Okay, Kate, when you look at your team, are there any picks that jump out as major values, you think? And then any regrets?
So I think this was a definite, this is sort of the pinnacle drafting from the number 2 spot in a super flex kind of outcome for me. For me, it all comes down to Russell Wilson was that pivotal pick, went just before me in the second round.
Yeah.
If he had fallen one spot further, I probably would have walked away with Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and my entire roster might look a little bit different. But for me, that tier break there following Russell Wilson into the Brady, Rodgers, Tua, Kirk Cousins range, that was the pivotal moment for me.
Sure.
And that's when I kind of decided best player available. All of these running backs that I drafted in the top 6 rounds, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne, Rashad Penny, I think 2 out of those 4 have potential to finish as the overall RB1. And I've got both of these guys currently projected, within the top 14. So I think I set the foundation there with running back, and I kind of used the rest of my draft to fill in some of those cracks. Deontay Johnson, more of a volume-based play. Juju, kind of an upside pick. But, the focus of this team was the running back position. My only regret is, Ryan Tannehill as my QB2, but we've seen him have plenty of upside before. If Treylon Burks really does make that jump like we hear he did from mini camp into training camp, that'll be fantastic. Robert Woods, if he is indeed fully healthy, we might see a return to efficiency and for Ryan Tannehill. So I think the safety is there, and maybe I would have liked some of those volatile receivers, Denny, that you made the bet on, because I think that could have complemented my running back core spectacularly.
Okay, yeah, I do like the Deontay Johnson pick. I think that really is a solid pick after getting both Barkley and Jones. So well done there. And stacking Tannehill and Woods, I think is a savvy move in a Titans offense that I guess could be forced to be a little more pass heavy than we think. So well done for both of you. Thank you to both Zach and Kate for joining me. You can find Zach on Twitter at ZK_FFB and Kate at FFBallBlast. They're both excellent follows. Go ahead and follow them. You can find me at CDCarter13 on Twitter. Listen, I'll be on the NFL on NBC YouTube page all day. Okay. I'm not going to eat anything. I'm not going to drink anything. I may pass out, but that's
bathroom breaks.
That's no bathroom breaks. I have a catheter. It's but that's the price of doing business, and this is the most important time of the fantasy football year. I'm sweating through my coat my jacket like an NBA coach back in the day. It doesn't matter. We're going forward. So I'll see you all on the stream later. Thanks to Kate. Thanks to Zach. And I will talk to you soon about draft mistakes and a Q&A. Thank you for joining.